very much that
Sorry, it's my fault.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sean Wise, and I believe that entrepreneurship can empower anyone. And that's what that lesson has really stuck with me from a young age. And so everything that I do is either to further entrepreneurship in my own life or to help other people. And so as a professor of entrepreneurship here, I get to do that. Has anyone seen the show Dragon's Den or Shark Tank? You can just put up your hand. It's okay to eat, Heather. I hope it's delicious. Thank you for turning on your camera. I spent 5 seasons with that show. When they came to Canada, the communist CBC didn't really understand capitalism. And I was interviewed to be a dragon, but they told me I had the face for radio. So I stuck around behind the scenes and ran their blog and got involved with the dragons and screenings. And it was a great experience. I got to travel our great country from coast to coast to coast 4 or 5 times and got to meet entrepreneurs in the thousands. Since then, I've had my own show on the Oprah Winfrey Network in the States. It's a small show called The Naked Entrepreneur, and it's nothing about nudity. They don't talk about with other people how entrepreneurship was hard or what the cost of entrepreneurship was. And we've been very blessed to have the likes of Kevin O'Leary and Robert Herjavec and Brett Wilson and the like to share their perspectives with our students. And it's taped in a student audience, and it's made by students, so it's a very bare bones kind of show. Um, I've been an investor myself since the dot-com boom. I'm with my third fund. We just finished Ryerson Futures, which was a 5-year fund. We invested in 23 different startups related close to the campus, people who agreed to wear Ryerson t-shirts. Most of what I do is B2B, so business to business. Most of it's software or digital. But I've been very blessed to get to meet so many different entrepreneurs uh, on the way that I'm able to share some of this information. And that's really what I'm here to do today. About 6 months ago, I began reading some information that really alarmed me. And it said that the pandemic was going to greatly hurt a lot of people, but no more so than our recent graduates from university. So those graduating in 2020, 2021, 2024, 2025 were going to have an impact on their career that they would never outgrow, never overcome, never be able to get past. And I just thought, what a ridiculous statement that is. I got to figure out what they're talking about. And as I investigated it more and more, I read reports from the International Monetary Fund. There was a report 2 weeks ago in the Globe and Mail about the issue. The government is concerned. What happens is that the first year jobs, the ones that you would normally get in that time period, they stop because nobody's going to take the time and effort. I know a young lady who graduated last year. She had a set job at a very large company, never happened. She's now made 200 inquiries and can't find a job, top of her class, because there are no jobs. But what happens then is in 5, 6 years, when the economy swings back around, people want to get started again, but they're not going to get people who are 5 years driving an Uber. They're going to get the people who are 5 years fresh out of school. So this generation gets skipped over. And that really alarmed me. Here are some of the stats for yourself, because I don't want to just talk and not give you the actual information. Um, Unemployment for people under the age of 30 has been almost as high as 1 in 3. And that means those people who want jobs can't get them. Now, this could have an impact on them for 10 to 15 years. And it has in other jurisdictions where this exact thing has happened. They have received billions of dollars less in earnings over a 2-decade period. Those lower family earnings lead to lower ownership in homes. They lead to greater poverty. They lead to low self-esteem, more addiction, substance abuse, suicide, high obesity rates. They don't get married. They never move out. And I started to really understand what some of these people are going through, living in their parents' basement, watching their parents' retirement fall apart, watching the family restaurant go out. And it became very alarming to me. So I do what I normally do when I'm alarmed. I try to take a deep breath and think, where have I seen this before? What can we learn from any of this? And what I came across was that this has actually happened before. There was an employment ice age in Japan in the 1990s, and an entire generation was locked out of employment for almost 10 years. Those people 20 years later have never engaged in the economy. They've not gotten married. They've not bought their homes. They've not started their lives. And it's not looking good for them because what's happened is they've been passed over. And I thought, well, that's really unusual. Japan's a very formal culture. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. And then it happened again in about 5 years ago in Greece, when almost 50% of the under 25 employment opportunities were gone. And these people never got their start. So I started to wonder what's going to happen to my students. What is this going to be like in a year or in 2 years? And what better yet should I, as a professor, try to tell them, if you're stuck at home, do this, learn French, it'll open up doors. But I couldn't do that. And so I started to think more and more about what it's going to require for people to get ahead. And it made me realize that it's basically entrepreneurship, that the idea of entrepreneurship is that you see opportunity and change. And this pandemic is going to lead to huge amounts of change. But more importantly, if we can't rely on a job from large companies and we can't rely on our government to take care of us, then who can we rely on? And that's really at the heart of entrepreneurship. We call that the internal locus of control. And it really just means that you think that if there's a problem, it's up to you to solve it. More importantly, if you have an external locus of control, then you can't solve a problem because you don't think you're responsible for it. And so the first thing I'd like you to think about is, well, this may all sound scary. Your future is still yours. It is still you who makes the decisions on how to move forward and what steps to take. So if we're going to be stuck in 5 to 10 years, then what can we do now? And my answer is really simple. It's you need to start something. You need to find something that you can do that in the meantime you can engage with. And when the market comes back and you want your first job, great. You can always put it aside. Or if the market never comes back and you can't get the job of your dreams, you can make your own. And I want to tell you that where once that was impossible, when I was in school in the 90s, you couldn't just do that. Because the costs of starting up have gotten so small, because we know the path to success, because we give courses at university called New Venture Creation, where we walk people through it, it's actually a great time to do this. And it doesn't require thousands of dollars. It doesn't require you to know anybody. It requires you to think about what you can do that's better than other people. The side hustle isn't just something that we're hearing about. Now, 4 in 10 American citizens have admitted on their tax forms they have a side hustle. 70% of these side hustlers have only done it because they need to make ends meet. They need to pay out their debt. They can't survive off of their regular hustle. And I know it's scary. Here's a list of the number one excuses why not to start a business. I'm frightened of failure. I don't know how to start. I have no idea of what business I should start, what opportunity I should pursue. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough connections. I'm undereducated. I'm overeducated. But what if I told you that none of those mattered anymore? What if I told you that in 2021, with $50 and a roadmap called 100 Steps to Startup, you could learn the route to entrepreneurship in the next 6 months, just like you could learn coding in the next 6 months. You don't have to be at the beck and call of the employment cycle. And these things about being afraid of failure, these things about not knowing how to start, they were excuses 20 years ago. But now that we've had 3 waves of startups, now that we've had the dot-com boom and Web 2.0 in 2008 and the age of unicorns in 2016, we've seen what it takes to start a side hustle. We've seen what it takes to scale a side hustle, and we've seen what it takes to start a startup. We now know the path. And if I could share that with you, then maybe there would be less things to be afraid of, because that's what we're going to do. So what I want you to do is take a second. I'll wait. I want you to get a pad of paper. I know it's old school, and I want you to get a pencil or a pen. Heather, you can keep eating, but get one anyway. Everyone, get a blank piece of paper. Cleo, I see you. Now, Armin and Al and Yakir, I'd really appreciate if you turn on your camera so we could all participate. And Kay and Anson and Mike, Teresa and Devi. Come on, we're all going to have fun, and I won't judge your outfit if you don't judge mine. Come on, Irene, turn on your camera. Because what I'm going to do before your very eyes and in the next 20 minutes is I'm going to lay out a path for you. It's not the perfect path. It's not the perfect path for everything. But it's the path that will work for you in 99 out of 100 side hustles you're thinking about. And if you trust me that I didn't just make millions out of luck, and I actually know what I'm talking about, and I've done this with thousands of students, then you'll follow along. You don't have to write this down. Cleo will provide you slides. It's okay. But I want you to participate. Okay? I want you to follow along and take these first steps together, because I'm going to show you before the clock strikes 7 that we can get an opportunity. We can think of one, and that opportunity will be ours. It's like magic, but it's not. So let's get started. By the way, all of this comes from a program we created at Ryerson called How to Start a Startup. It's called 100 Steps to Startup.com. It's used in 23 universities around the world. It trains about 1,000 students a semester. And all it is a series of videos, a series of exercises, like the exercises we're about to do, that walk you step by step through it. We offer it to students at a discount. It's even offered as a textbook in a couple of classes. But what I'm telling you is, because we've had 20 years of studying Uber and Tinder and Google, we can map this stuff. And because we can map it, it's repeatable. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not so linear. Nothing in entrepreneurship is a straight line. There's lots of ups and downs and pivots. But this is the basic way you start. And if you want to find out more, you can go to 100stepstostartup.com. Okay, step number 1. Are you ready, Heather? Leo, are you ready? Let me see a thumbs up. We're good. Mike is ready. Armin is ready. Okay. Step number 1. I want you to think about a customer segment, a group of human beings that you participate in, you're a member of. So I'm a member of people who like Doctor Who. That's the group of sci-fi geeks. I'm a parent of young children. I'm a professor. So I want Heather and Anisha and Anna and Jeffrey, I want you all to just write down quickly some bullet points of the customer groups you are in. Okay? So make a list of the customer groups. So I'll give you one. You're a graduate student. You're an undergraduate student. You're an alumni. That's a customer segment. You're a newcomer to the country. You're a multi-generational to the now. You're left-handed. You're tall. You're short. You have frizzy hair. All of these are customer segments that have their own unique problems. And so I want you, just while we wait, and I'm looking for Anson and Adam, I want you to come up with at least 5 customer segments. And I'm going to give you 1 more minute. And then I'm going to ask Heather, who's now turned off her camera, or Daniel, or I'm going to ask someone else to volunteer. Their groups. So 1 more minute. Write 5 groups that you're a member of. I'm a parent with young children. I'm 50 years old. I'm old. I'm a professor, venture capitalist. Right? So if you want to participate, because I don't want to pick on just Noah because he's good looking. If you want to participate, then you can just put your name in the chat window. That'll be like raising your hands. I have 200 or so people. I can't possibly pick on you. But Cleo, let me pick on you because I pay you. Cleo, what customer segments are you part of?
I am part of the segment of curly-haired women, always looking for product. I am part of the customer segment of women who live between straight size versus plus size clothing, always looking for new clothing. I am a part of the customer segment of women looking for fitness that is engaging rather than just going to the gym and lifting. I'm a customer segment of world travelers in the luxury space. And I am a customer segment of people who take the public transit.
I love the variety. I
Oh,
think that's absolutely fabulous.
spice of life.
Noah, thank you, my handsome friend. Could you tell me the customer segments that you are part of? Just pick the top three.
I'm gonna go Jewish, sporty, and video. Like I'm a video game player, so
So a well-spoken video game player, a person of Jewish descent, and the other one I've already forgotten.
athletic.
Athletic. Okay. Beverly, can I pick on you? Do you want to share your three, Beverly?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm a member of
You're part of the silent majority, yes?
with Refined Dreadlocks,
Yeah.
a running club, and a hiking group.
Okay. Now, Beverly, Cleo, and Noah, I want you to ask yourself, and that means everyone who's not paying attention, you should also do this. These three questions. Do you have access to these groups? Access would mean that if you had to call 20 people, you already know their names and numbers. So you're already in a running group with them, Beverly. You already have them. I'm not saying they're your best friend.
Right.
We're not donating a kidney. But if you have 20 people, you have good access to these things. So 20 people with dreadlocks, 20 other Jewish people, 20 people who are sporty. The next question you want to ask yourself is, am I passionate about it? Do I want to help other runners? Do I want to help other sporty people? Do I want to help other people who don't fit in a traditional size? Is that something that interests me? And the real question I learned a long time ago from a student was this. On Thursday night, would you choose to stay home and work on this or go to the pub with your friends? And you're looking for something, not so much that you're passionate about, more that you're obsessed with. Running is a great example, Beverly. My wife is a runner. And when she's into running, everything she sees is running. I got to get new shoes. I got to do this marathon and let's go travel this. And so you're looking for something that even if they weren't paying you, you would probably still be interested. I still watch Star Trek, but no one pays me to watch that. I'm still interested in Star Wars. So you want to make sure you're passionate for it. And you also want to make sure that you have some insights about it. Now, what do I mean by insights? I would never dream of building a product for a runner since I still run like a kid who's 4 and I don't go on big marathons or do any of those things. So I accept that I'm blind to how that really works. So I have no credibility with that. But someone like Beverly, who's a former world champion and is on Team Canada for running, she's got lots of credibility for it. You know what else she might have? Some deep insights. Just like Cleo has insights what it's like to have such awesome hair. Right? Having awesome hair is a burden, but only Cleo would understand that because Noah and I don't have the awesome hair. So the idea is you shouldn't choose a group that you don't have access to, because you could come up with the greatest idea for surgeons who do surgery underwater. But if you don't know any surgeons who do surgery underwater, and if you have never done surgery yourself underwater, you're not going to have any credibility, you're not going to have any access, and no one's going to take your insights seriously. You want to make sure that when you create that first most vital step, that you're choosing a customer segment that you know a lot about, that you're passionate about. And the reason isn't just because that's what it takes at 3 a.m. to keep working. That's what it takes to love your customers so much when they make you crazy. It's because you don't have any customers without access, insights, and passion. So now what I want everyone to do, including Beverly, Cleo, and Noah, is I want you to cross off your list of customer segments, all the ones that you don't have access to. Heather, can you do that for me? Mike, can you do that for me? So you had a list of 3 to 5. Cross off the ones that you can't personally name 20 people who you think represent this segment. So I can name 20 people who love Star Wars. I'm not just a fan, you know, I belong to the Star Wars fan club and I go to Disney. And so I know other people who are wacky like me. Now, I'm not saying runners are wacky, but between the two of us, I'll bet you Beverly has a bigger list of runners than I do. So can you put your hand up or give me a thumbs up if you crossed at least one thing off your list? Okay, second. Cross off anything you're not passionate about. I'm talking hundreds of hours a week passionate. I'm talking about 10 years of your life talking about it passionate. I'm talking about I would do it for free. That's how much it means to me passionate. I'll wait. Cross off your list something that you wouldn't do for free because you think it's just so important. And the last one, this is the last exercise, Mike and Teresa, Jenny, I hope you're following along. Cross off anything on the list that you don't think you're smarter at than other people. What do I mean by that? Paul Graham, the famous founder of Y Combinator, where Airbnb and so many other great startups were born, he said, you need to know something that others don't yet. You need to have an insight that more people are going to run, or there's going to be running in the winter, or because the global climate change running season will extend. But there has to be something that you have that 99% of the other pieces of the population don't know is true yet. Because that's the insight that gives you a competitive advantage. That's where it comes from. That's where we go with. I'm sorry, Cleo, can you throw out whoever's advertising in the chat window?
Oh, who is advertising?
Thanks.
Got it.
So we should now be at step 1. Okay. So Teresa, you've told me that you've got newcomers in your eye. So you have insights and passion. And I think that's the exact place you want. So what's the next step? Now, with only the ones that are left, my friend, so the 1 or 2 on your list left, I want you to write down the problems they have. Beverly, thank you for letting me pick on you. What are the problems of runners? You know, what about the weather? That's got to be a problem. And what about X and Y? So I want you to turn your mind to the biggest problems, not just the little ones. Tell me the ones that are what economists call inelastic. It's a funny term. It comes from a theory known as the inelasticity of price. And what it says is that prices go up and down based on demand, and demand is impacted by price. So when Cleo was young and she thought smoking was cool, and it's not, don't smoke, right? She would make a decision that that's something she would do. I totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Cleo would do that. You need to find problems that are inelastic. And an inelastic problem is one that you would pay any price for. With Cleo and the cigarettes, the way they stopped kids from smoking was by raising the price. The way you keep people from buying expensive shoes is make them more expensive. But there are some items that have no price ceiling. Can anyone put in the chat window an item that is inelastic? You'll pay whatever price it is, no matter how much that price is. What is the most inelastic commodity in the world? Ooh, I'm really stumping people. Very good. Security, food, alcohol, love. Oh, I like love. Oh, Samit's got it. Okay. Samit's very close. Inelastic. So inelastic means I can't live with it. When I teach my children, it's the needs, not the wants. I want a new comic book. That's a want. I need oxygen, water, shelter, etc., and so on. So if you have to choose a problem to solve, you solve the inelastic ones. Why? Because they're not price sensitive. Because everyone needs one. If you go to Mars, you can sell oxygen for any price you want because it's the most scarce commodity. So what I want you to do now is take a minute, and with the customer segment groups you have, I want you to find a problem that's worth solving by thinking about the inelasticity of demand. Think about the needs, not the wants. What are the needs of runners? What are the needs of sporty people? What are the needs of people with awesome hair? Not the wants, because the wants people won't pay a lot of money for. People won't tolerate imperfection in a want. But if you have a cure for an ailing disease, people will pay any money for it, even if it's not perfect. My mother, God bless her, she is desperate for the vaccine. So she wants the 1-shot vaccine, but they offered her the 2-shot today. And guess what? She took it. Why? Because for her, it's a need. She can't leave her house. So the more something is a need, the more people pay for it. But more importantly, the more people will tolerate imperfection. And when you get started in your side hustle, trust me, it will be imperfect. Okay? Finally, you always want to think about something, and this is what will eliminate all but your best idea. Are the people who you have access to already spending money solving the problem inefficiently? Let me re-explain. When I was a young man all those years ago, and I was learning how to spell, we didn't have word processors. We had mothers. And I would have to take my essay to my mom, who wasn't very nice, and she would make me sit there while she circled and read all my spelling mistakes and do it so I'd have to recopy the whole thing. And it wasn't good. But in the late 80s, software was created called spell check. Now, imagine the first spell check sucks. Imagine there's maybe 500 words, but it's better than my mother. It's exponentially better than my mother because it doesn't make me feel bad. It's exponentially better than my mother because it's when I want it. Imagine having to wait 3 days until your mother has time to spell check. Imagine you're handing in your essay and you've got to wait 3 days for spell check. But what it did, crappy as it was the most misspelled words in the English language, which I always spelled wrong. And it was good. The first spell check was something I was already doing inefficiently. I was already checking my documents for spelling, but I was doing it painfully. When Cleo breaks up with her partner, her romantic partner, she used to do it in a letter. And she'd have to wait 2 weeks for that letter to get there by snail mail. But now she just texts that person. And it's instant and it's better. You need to find an activity, a problem that people are already solving. So take a minute, go back to your list. Now you should have a list of problems, and I want you to find the one that people are already solving. I'm going to turn to you, Beverly. What was the problems on your list for runners?
Sore knees, not good enough shoes, worn out shoes is a problem.
Great. I'm going to randomly pick one because I don't know anything about running. I'm going to say sore knees. Okay. Can I just let me tell you what I think the problem is, and then you correct me if I'm wrong. Running puts a lot of stress on your knee joints. And if you run too much, too fast, too long for too many years, it's not ideal.
Running on concrete is pretty bad.
Running on concrete. Okay. So since we have to run on concrete because we don't all have like the perfect treads, then the question is how do people solve it today? They get knee braces, they get different types of shoes. So Beverly is correct, and she should get a startup school t-shirt because she has found a problem that she has access to, that she has passion for, and that people are already spending. And why is that important, Beverly? I'll tell you why. Because an early adopter is defined as a person who knows they have a problem, a person who has that problem, and they're actively solving it. You know, you go through influencers and early adopters and early majority. They call that the Rogers adoption curve. At the stage that you're starting your business, you can only go after early adopters because they're the only people who will tolerate whatever Beverly's solution is going to be. Now, you'll hear me talk about Beverly's solution. Maybe it's a knee brace and that makes it a product, but maybe it's massage therapy or laser therapy and it's a service. What I'm saying is it wouldn't matter to Beverly at this point that she didn't know what she was going to build. She just knew that she liked this type of customer. She felt she could be passionate in serving them. She felt she had a competitive advantage in understanding something about that market. And she knew that those people were already spending hundreds of dollars to solve this problem another way, which means that you don't have to convince them it's a problem. You don't have to convince them there's a solution. They're already looking for it. And that's really what's important. We had to make this list of inelastic problems. But we could only make that list of inelastic problems once we knew the customers in the problem set. And once we had that, we were able to eliminate those that we don't all have access to, insight for, credibility with. And so I'm going to say boldly, Beverly, Reed, your startup opportunity may lie somewhere in there. And that's as far as you can get by step 2. Now, what happens next is we turn on the gas. So let's say Beverly wants to look at the problem of the sore knee joints by running on concrete. And the customer segment is urban runners, which is defined as people who run 2 or more times a week. The first thing we do is not write a business plan. We haven't written business plans since the year 2000. No one wants to read your 50-page business plan. Why? Because it's all full of assumptions. It's all made up. You guessed at these things and you thought it was a good idea. You put it in paper. But business planning is not dead, just the business plan. And instead, what we use is something called the lean canvas. And the lean canvas is the 21st century version of a business plan. It's an 11 by 17 piece of paper, although if you would ever go in the DMZ, you would see it on the walls. You'd see it on the walls of the fashion zone. It is a structure. It is a framework. But I like to visualize it as an 11 by 17 piece of paper with 9 boxes on it. And each box represents a different key component of a business model. Now, a business model is not someone who looks amazing and has good hair. A business model is how a business runs. What is the input? What ingredients come in? What assets come in? What resources? And what comes out? McDonald's takes out of work York students poor quality food, puts them together and sells it at a low price. That's their business model. If they want to make more money, they can be cheaper or sell more. The lean canvas is a tool used by entrepreneurs in the 21st century to track the growth of their business. In the 21st century, we don't use a business plan. We use this framework, and it's called the lean canvas. You can just Google it. There's 100 of them online. There's 100 pieces of software that make it. And what it says is that there's a scientific way to build a startup. This scientific way began with my professor at the University of California, Berkeley, known as Steve Blank. And Steve Blank's student, Eric Ries, created the lean startup at Harvard. And all of that was to create a scientific path that you walk yourself through. So what does the lean canvas have to do with it? When you start, it's all your assumptions. So let's start with Beverly's lean canvas. We already know the customer segment. The customer segment is urban runners, and that's defined as people who run at least twice a week on concrete. So let's ask, where would we find early adopters, people who are already aware they have sore knees? Beverly, where would you find those? Maybe at running clubs that you go to in the morning?
You can find maybe in a gym.
So maybe in a gym because it's snowing, they're running on a track. Maybe there's running groups like the running room that go around the neighborhood. But you're already able to see if people are running, they have this knee problem. If I need to find people who have the knee problem, here's where I go. The second thing is the purple box. What is the customer's inelastic problems? And of the list that Beverly shared with us, we found the inelastic one was the knee pain. Now we're already 2 boxes in and we have a customer segment and we have a problem. But they're still just assumptions. While Beverly is awesome, they're really based on her own firsthand knowledge. And that's very dangerous to rely upon. In the 21st century, what we do instead is we go and engage in a series of interviews with early adopters. That process is called customer discovery. And it's how we move through the lean canvas. Customer discovery is the process of interviewing customers to confirm your assumptions. So, step 3, we took a lean canvas and we wrote down all the assumptions, what the problem was, what we thought the money could be made. And then we're going to go out and we're going to test that in a series of interviews. That is customer discovery. And as you interview people, you will get more information that confirms that the problem you have is truly inelastic, or you'll find out there's an even bigger problem. It isn't the knees, it's the ankles. And isn't it better to find out that the ankles are a better focus to get started on before you build your product, before you decide your marketing, right? What if you focused on the knees and then you turned out to be wrong? So this idea is very different and it's very uncomfortable for students. Instead of trying to be right, instead of trying to write down the perfect answers, it doesn't matter. You write down the key assumptions and then you test them, and you can test them in a variety of ways: customer interviews, customer surveys, MVP demonstrations. But the idea of the 21st century building an entrepreneurship, building a side hustle, is you don't go spend money and then find there's no customer. I had enough of that on Dragon's Den. I have the greatest product, but no one's ever bought it. I don't want to hear that. So before you go and spend $1, Beverly, on your running business to fix people's sore knees, go speak to those people. Go use your access. And that's what we do next. We test assumptions by interviewing dozens of members of that group. Oh, but Professor Wise, if I tell all the other runners that there's a problem with their knees, they're going to steal my idea. That's just not true. That's just not true at all. The idea is that by sharing, you learn more than you risk. And remember, an idea isn't patentable. If someone can just steal what you have because you told them or they read it on the back of a napkin, then you don't have anything. It's the execution. It is the innovation that people are developing. So you want to test these assumptions by interviewing people. These are customer interviews. And to do that, we build a minimum viable product, which we call creating the prototype. A minimum viable product is a fancy name for the suckiest prototype that people will still pay for. The idea is that in order to learn, which is the true goal of running a startup, we need to iterate. We need to keep showing these early adopters different variations so that we eliminate the uncertainty. You know, we don't need to build 100 different cars that are pink only to find out that no one wants a pink car. So the idea of an MVP is that you want to focus on the one thing that you need to accomplish. Remember the spell check example. As long as the spell check did the first 500 words, the words that are most spelled often, it was of value. It didn't do grammar. It didn't do French. It didn't do any of those things. It was ugly, but it worked. And that's the key, that the prototype you're giving works. If you want to make Angry Birds, that's great. But you've got to have a full 1 level or 2 levels to show people how it's going to work. You don't build out all 500 levels and decide what to do. You start small. This little diagram I always find helpful with students. I find that when they think about it, if we built a car in the same way we're talking about building a startup, you know, we would start with a skateboard. Why? Because automobiles, skateboards, bicycles, they're all about getting from point A to point B faster than I can with my feet. So if an automobile is a faster way to go from A to B, then what does the minimum viable product? What is the smallest thing that I can test to see if people are willing to pay to go from A to B? And so you wouldn't start with the two wheels because you can't get from A to B with the two wheels. And you wouldn't start without the roof. You wouldn't build it that way. You would build it iteratively. And as you got closer and closer to the perfect product, you would be able to get more and more of the market. Because as we discussed earlier, early adopters will put up with imperfect products, but the majority will not. And so that early time allows you to grow your startup or your side hustle. But you don't actually have to build your product. There are lots of ways to test your idea. In the new venture creation class, ENT 500, these are some of the ways students test their ideas. In one case, the students wrote an amazing marketing website, and they clicked a button that said, please register if you want to learn more. And they collected people's registration as proof that the problem they were talking about was resonating with people. But there's a variety of tests. I use a system called Clarity FM, and Clarity FM allows you to book phone calls with experts from around the world. And so why Clarity FM is such a good example is when they were first building it, they built the first one with 100 experts, but the buy now button didn't actually work. When they clicked the buy now button, it just took them to a website that said, thank you for confirming that you have needs and that this fills your needs. Please let us know when we can contact you and we'll follow up. But there was nothing to follow up. Dropbox is a great example of this. Dropbox, which was the original Google Drive idea, a magic pocket that you can store anything on, have a Google of Dropbox explainer video. They didn't have a product. They had a 3-minute video that got 75,000 people to sign up for it. That's the proof they needed to know that their side hustle was going to be something bigger. The idea here is that your prototype, your minimum viable product, it allows you to validate your ideas. It allows you to test with real customers, to involve them in a collaborative effort to remove uncertainty. So you don't make pink cars, you make cars the color people who want to buy cars want. And then what it does also is save you time and money as you're able to iterate instead of go down different paths that lead to nowhere. Finally, it allows you to build a community. Because you're starting with people who already want what you're selling, it allows them to not only tolerate the imperfections, but to support and collaborate. So what I'm talking about is step 6. Once you've built your MVP, you're going to go out and speak to 100 members of the group. You're going to demonstrate it for them, and that can be over the web. That can be through a video on YouTube. There's a lot of different ways. But the idea here is that you're getting the customer feedback as you move forward. And you will continue to iterate this process of build, measure, learn, build a prototype, build an experiment, build an idea, and take it an inch forward and measure the results, and then learn from that. The speed of learning is the key to successful startups. The speed of learning, not getting it right away. Being open and agile and moving through these steps early enough is all part of a process known as the lean startup methodology, or what we teach in ENT 500, and we call it 100 steps to startup. But the idea is that you take this idea, you create a hypothesis, you build an experiment to test that hypothesis with an MVP. You either get your hypothesis right, people with awesome hair want to buy this product, people who have sore knees from running want to buy this product, or you don't. And that evidence leads you. It either leads you to change the product, to change the business model, to change the revenue source. That's called a pivot. Anytime you change one of the 9 elements of a business model, it's called a pivot. All those boxes on the lean canvas, anytime you change one, you thought you were software for doctors, but you're really software for dentists. Okay, that's a pivot. So when you run these experiments, you'll succeed sometimes and you'll persevere, or you'll fail. The experiment will prove out that your hypothesis was incorrect, which is actually very good because eventually you'll run out of incorrect ones and you'll end up with the correct one. And that's called a pivot. And you keep doing this cycle over and over and over again Until you move from a testable product to a viable product to a usable product to a lovable product. And it's an iterative step. My whole point of this is that if you're sitting at home with a great idea that you want to turn into an opportunity, you need to start. And here's a path for you to work through those early days that doesn't require a lot of money. It requires effort and learning and focus. Now, this is only steps 1 through 7. There's a lot more, but I always say to people, you got to celebrate every time you win. So if you can get to step 7 at least once, then you're already halfway there. In the larger scope of this, finding a problem that people are willing to pay for is technically called problem solution fit. Problem solution fit. And it's the first of the 3 major milestones, the 3 major phases that you go through as you evolve from a startup into a scale up or a scalable business. First, you want to find the problem we're solving. You want to discover an exponential solution. And you do that with demos and customer interviews. You don't have to make money at each step, but the idea of a startup is that you're a novel organization that's searching for a repeatable, sustainable, scalable business model before you run out of resources. A startup is a new organization searching for a repeatable, something they can do a lot of, sustainable, something that will eventually make more money than it costs, and scalable, something that eventually will make way more money than it will cost. Software is a great example. Building that first app, building that first demo, that's a lot of hours. But you then iterate from there until you have a product that you're comfortable enough can generate revenue. But what I'm trying to show you is that you're not in the dark anymore. You don't have to guess what comes next. All that I'm talking about is learned over 20 years, not by me, but by the whole community. All of this is published on blogs and discussed. All of this forms the foundation. And so if you're Beverly or you're Noah or you're Irene or Jason, you can do this while you're stuck at home. You can do this work. Some people test ideas by buying Google AdWords and seeing what people are searching for, because if someone's searching for it, it means they're looking for a solution. There's a ton of different ways to go about this, but you don't have to guess. I have to wrap up because I want to really open the floor, but my students always ask me about the biggest bullshits about entrepreneurship. So things that just aren't true. And I want to share those with you just quickly. So entrepreneurs are not born, they're not made. Entrepreneurship is nothing like that. It is not genetic. It is not a result of training. To be an entrepreneur, it's about choice. It's about waking up and deciding that I'm going to solve the problem, that I'm going to take control, that I'm going to put the effort in to be the maker, not the user. Okay. We have entrepreneurs, and when I say entrepreneurs, I mean all kinds, from Elon Musk to the newcomers who are joining us and applying their trades to young entrepreneurs, to gray entrepreneurs, to entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, small business people, startup people. Okay. It's a choice. Entrepreneurship is not a science, it's not an art, it's a practice, like meditation or playing the guitar. You have to learn entrepreneurship by doing entrepreneurship, which is really funny because I teach entrepreneurship. But what we do is create a safe space for students to learn entrepreneurship. We have experiential classes where we push students into the swimming, the metaphorical swimming and a metaphorical deep end of the swimming pool and help them to move through that water. Entrepreneurs are not gamblers. I don't buy a lottery ticket because I'd rather invest in myself. There's a higher probability that I'll make millions than that lottery ticket. And you have to believe that about yourself. But it's not all about money. It's also about control and deciding what you want to do with your time. It doesn't have to be all profit driven. There's social entrepreneurship and indigenous entrepreneurship. There's so many different ways to use entrepreneurship to empower yourself. I can tell you unequivocally that the entrepreneurship is neither for the young or the old. There is no correlation between age and entrepreneurship. There are circumstances which often happen when you're young, when you're able to be more adversarial, when you don't need to go into a job, when you don't have kids to feed and mortgages to pay. But there's also a lot of evidence that seniorpreneurs are doing really well because they have lifetimes of experiences to mine. There's no magic in entrepreneurship other than what I've told you. The internal locus of control, the decision to be an entrepreneur is really on you. You know, people used to ask me all the time about Dragon's Den, and they used to always ask me, you know, if you're so good at picking companies, you know, what do you think of all those ridiculous proposals? And I always said the same thing. What's more ridiculous, to sit at home and criticize other people or to take your shot? The great Wayne Gretzky, and what presentation wouldn't be Canadian without a hockey reference? But the great Wayne Gretzky once said, you always miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take your shot. Don't let these excuses that we've talked about, I don't have the money, I don't have the connections, they're just not true anymore. Okay? We don't. You can start a business on $5. You can start a business on $50. There's a book called The $100 Startup. They're all real. My students do it every day. You don't have to live somewhere special like Toronto or Silicon Valley. Everyone is online. There are billions of people buying online. You don't even have to do it yourself. We have things like startup dating, which is like Tinder for founders, where you can find a coder in Slovakia or a consumer in New York, and you can team up to build a business. These sites exist all over the world. And most of all, don't think you can't do it because you don't know how. I just showed you how. And that's just a small taste of these lessons that have only started to become known. As always, you're welcome to participate in 100 steps, either through the course, through the university, or on your own. I want to leave you with one real thought, and then I'll open it up for questions. I do all this because I believe that entrepreneurs change the world. I think that we all have the potential to be entrepreneurs. If I could do it at 13, then every one of us can do it. But I think you need a little bit of courage. You need a little bit of bravery. You got to overcome those nerves and that fear of failure. And the fact that everyone's told you that to be afraid of failure doesn't help, but you got to get through it. But if you do that and you follow this path, maybe not my path or the path that we're discussing, but a scientific approach to building your side hustle, and you focus on something that you have access to, something that you have knowledge of, then I think you won't be a entrepreneur for very long. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Cleo and let her run the final parts and field the questions. Let me get my face out of here. If you're interested in asking a question, but you're shy, there's my direct email address. If you thought some of these stories were worth reading, there's a copy of my latest book. So without further ado, I am going to
Perfect.
open myself up for the question.
So anyone with questions, you guys, I assume you know how to use Zoom, you can raise your hand and I will call on you, and we can kind of get this show on the road. I feel like if anybody doesn't have the hand raising feature, there's like a thumbs up or, and anything.
You can just throw your name in the chat window and I would be happy to answer any questions you want. Beverly, are you happy or are you trying to ask a question?
Trying to ask a question.
Well,
I'm
can I
happy.
just ask the group to give you a round of applause for letting me pick on you? And Heather, you were going to be my target, but you were eating. Go ahead, Beverly. The first question is yours and you have my thanks.
So I've had the idea for more than 10 years to start my own decluttering and organizing business. I'm very confident at doing it. I am lacking courage. I don't know what's holding me back.
Let me get my magic wand. Hold on. Oh, I don't have one. Can I give you a suggestion? And again, I only give it because I've seen it work in other situations. I can't possibly know you well enough to actually be arrogant enough to.
I also have my business cards and flyers already printed like months ago, and they're just sitting in my car.
How much money are they making you in your car?
Zero.
Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, these flyers took money and they either cost a printing fee or a photocopy fee or your time and energy. So you've already sunk the cost there. So if you don't move them, what probability do you have of making money? If you move them, what is the chance that you will get nowhere? You will fall flat on your face. People will call you up and say, ha ha, you have a terrible business. No, I'm being honest. That could happen. Is that a high likelihood, not high likelihood? It's not 100%. So there's
Not.
no chance that one of these people pick up your flyer and pay you and you actually succeed. But if you never hand out the flyers, I guarantee you won't succeed. So I have two suggestions for you. One, I bet you $100 you can't give out all those flyers in the next 30 days.
I
You
can.
give out all 30 and I'll have Cleo mail you $100.
Sounds like a win-win to me.
No, I'm gonna let her talk. Put up or shut up. $100 for your time and effort to hand out those flyers.
I can do that.
Don't can, do it.
I will.
Okay. The second thing I'll do is if you do that, you get my $100. I will introduce you to the woman that I paid $10,000 to declutter the house when we moved. And
Wow.
maybe you would volunteer or join her crew or not be in charge of like the selling, just the hardworking part. And maybe you would do it for maybe 3 months or 6 months or until you decided you'd learned everything. Or maybe you'd fall in love and you do it together. But you can't always fight fear with soft talk and conversation. The only way to fight fear is action.
Actually,
If you're afraid of spiders, I got to throw a spider at you. If you're afraid of handing out flyers, you got to do it and know that the worst thing that could happen is someone's going to call and laugh at you. And guess what? Happens to me all the time. Okay.
thank you.
And I'm telling you, so $100 and an introduction to Toronto's greatest entrepreneurial declutterer.
I'd love that introduction.
Well, it's up to you. I'm not giving it out. I already know her and pay her. You have 30 days. Cleo, can you make that happen, please?
Absolutely. Next,
Wow.
Who's next question?
Sephora, next question. Go ahead.
Thanks, Professor, for this this presentation.
Thank you
I
for
have a
showing.
question. I'm also a former student, 2015. I have a question in regards to, have you seen, so I just had my first baby in September 2019, and of course the pandemic.
Oh, congratulations. How does it feel not to sleep for months?
It's hard. I actually have another one on the way.
Congratulations. Just so you know, I had no gray hair before my children who are 4 and 7. Just letting it know.
So I just wanted to know, it's always been a dream of mine to be an entrepreneur, but of course I got married young and then we started having babies and now we have a mortgage and I just feel so committed. I have all these commitments and the thought of doing entrepreneurship. And I know you said we have no excuses, but what are the barriers that you've seen, like women, like moms who try, I watch Shark Tank a lot and a lot of their ideas are like clothes for babies and, things like that. But what if I want to step away from that? But what are the real, like, have you seen moms, new moms really make it in this space, or should I wait till
Well,
that?
first off, I think you're asking the right questions. I know that your startup team is made up of the babies and your partner. And if the mortgage needs to be paid and your startup isn't generating whatever that month, I know that firsthand. So I don't think that's so wrong. I wouldn't be so full of myself to say I know that perspective well, or I can feel your pain, because I don't.
Mhm.
What I can tell you is that you would not be alone in being a baby mama millionaire. I can tell you that the problems that you are experiencing, whether it be can't get the kid to go to sleep, or the clothing changes over too fast, or they outgrow their shoes, are being experienced by billions of people like you all around the world. And that insight is why so many people in your situation double down on a baby product. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would agree with you that you might want to diversify, because the boys will be in school when they turn 5, and Harvard's only 10 more years after that. So you want to start building now so that when they go back, you then can fill your bandwidth. Now, here's the secret. There's no stopwatch behind you saying you have to go faster or slower. So when the babies are sleeping, invest a little time in yourself. Look into your idea. Work on your lean canvas. Don't drop the babies and start the business tomorrow. Don't drop the babies at all.
Yeah.
But don't not start. Don't not start. You can go slow. Okay, you can do it. You can move there. You don't have to be a super mom. You don't have to get everything done, because there's no finish line but your own. But your time will change as the youngest moves towards school. I know it firsthand. So you want to use the years between now and then to lay the foundation for your success. Now, maybe you're like my friend who wanted to do the decluttering business. You don't have to start a business to learn about a business. You can go and pick up a shift here and pick up a shift there. And when the babies aren't with you, they're with the family or what at school, you can learn that way. It isn't binary. Okay. You got to throw everything in, sell your kids. You got to mortgage your future. That's bullshit. You have to live in the real world. You have a beautiful family. You shouldn't feel bad about that, but you should also keep working on your business dreams. Okay. You don't have to be like me. I mean, I named my kids Edison and Max Marley after entrepreneurs, but that's just me. You don't have to do that. Although Sean is a great name. Okay, there's a question.
Yeah, so I have 2 questions in the chat, Sean,
Go
and
ahead.
we'll go to the people.
Thank you.
So we have first, your Veet is asking, what do you think is key when pitching to investors?
You got to go and watch the video from Startup School by me about pitching to investors. I'll give you 3 magic words, and then you'll have to go figure them out. Number 1, there are 10 magic slides. They were created by Guy Kawasaki, the chief marketing officer from Apple. The 10 magic slides. Number 2, in the 21st century, investors are all about show me, don't tell me. I don't want to hear that your customers love you. I want to see purchase orders. I don't want to hear that people can't stop using our games. I want to see server logs. Today, because the cost of launching and testing has gone so low, investors don't want to give you money if you don't want to put your own money in. It isn't like when it was the 90s and I needed $5 million to start a jewelry.com business. Now I can start a jewelry business with $50, some drop shipping, and Shopify. So with the cost being so small, we expect you to go first, right? You come to me when you have 1,000 users and you want to learn how to get to 100,000 users. You don't come to me when you have a dream. When you have a dream, you build, you learn how to do customer discovery. Next question, Cleo. So go get that. That's all I can tell you.
Michelle Cooey, you can unmute yourself and go ahead, and then we'll do Farkunda and then Barnabas.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thanks for giving me a chance and thanks for your wonderful ideas. So right now I am looking for the angel investor or seed investor. As you previously have said, you won't invest someone who didn't invest money in. The reason I want to be the entrepreneur is because I don't have money, and it is a tough situation to me find a job with 2 young kids. So I believe my idea has been, save the issues. But however, how can I be kicked by the board to invest to OmniPlace? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So the question was, I don't have any money. I need to find an investor. And I'm going to say that's no longer true. You may not have money to start an entire business. You may not have money to be self-sufficient. You may not have money to create a $1 million app. But you don't need money to engage in customer discovery. You don't need money to work through assumptions in your lean canvas. You don't need money to work and have a minimum viable product. And by money, I mean thousands and tens of thousands. You need a $5 Google account and you need a $50 Shopify account. But my students are doing it in real time. Yes, this doesn't work for every startup. If you're doing biotechnology, if you're doing space travel, you're not going to create an MVP in your garage. But this idea that you should chase investors before chasing users is no longer valid, because you don't need my money. You need the input of future early adopters. And in so many of these cases, I don't know anything about it. I'm not a runner. I don't know anything about running. How could I possibly be a help to our friend who's creating the running company to solve the knee problem? I hope that helps. It's not meant to be, sarcastic. I think you're in a real situation. But again, why don't you start small? Start with what you can do, and then move from there. Thank you for your question, Leo.
Thank you.
Farkunda, please go ahead.
Hi, Professor. Thank you for the great lecture. So I've been thinking about doing a business for a long time, and I recently just started a clothing brand, and I haven't really done any promotion or anything yet, but I have designed the products and I've sent it out, and I'm thinking about promotion. I like promoting ideas and just like all the other stuff. I was just wondering, I don't know what the next step to take regarding promoting. I'm having a difficult time.
Would it be okay? Thank you for your question. Would it be okay if I gave you a short answer and a long answer? So the short answer is you shouldn't begin promotions. You should take your catalog of ideas and figure out who is most receptive to them. Who are your early adopters? You know, why did you make this brand? Are they all people who like polka dots? Are they all people who like dogs? You know, you have your own niche. And you should do a Kickstarter campaign where people can pre-buy the products in advance. Now, there's a lot of, I say Kickstarter, but I'm really talking about any sort of crowdfunding. There's 1,000 different ways to do it. There's even one that's fashion only. But the idea is that before you go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory to find out that nobody wants what you're making, you can create a digital storefront with your images and take pre-orders. Because what makes you feel confident that your work is great isn't your own belief, it's the 1,000 orders within 5 minutes. It's the, oh my gosh, I'm sold out again, and I can't wait for that to happen to you. But the old school way would be to go get an investor to buy a bunch of product and then to try to push it out. But what if it was all the wrong color? And if you had only known that before? So instead, put it up on a website, add a bunch of buy now buttons, and collect people's information, even if you can't make them. Because that feedback will shape your product and make it less likely to fail in the long term. That's my short answer. Okay, so my short answer is to test it with real life customers, either in person by showing them things or a slide over Zoom. But it's easy to say I like your stuff. It's a lot harder to put my credit card information in. And bullshit walks and money talks. So your mother is always going to say you have beautiful clothing. My mother is going to say the same thing. So we have to, well, maybe not my mother, but what we have to do is find those people who don't like us, because when the people who don't like us buy our stuff, we know it must be because of the stuff. So that was my short answer. My long answer is a little bit different. So you're not the first person to come up with a brand and some clothing. Agreed?
Yeah.
So there's other people like you, people you could aspire to, people who come from similar backgrounds or who've done similar things or are interested in similar music or style, and you watch what they do. And by watching what you do, you learn what works. Now, in entrepreneurship, we call this swiping, but it's not a bad thing. It stands for steal with integrity and pride everywhere. People come up to me all the time and they say, you have a bestseller, I want a bestseller. But they never ask, how many hundreds of hours did it take for you to hustle to get a bestseller? And did it ever make you any money? The answer is about 1,000, and the answer is no. But My point here is that other people have done what you're trying to do. When I wanted to become a better speaker, and one day hopefully I will be a good one, I did so by watching John F. Kennedy and other famous speech makers, Martin Luther King, President Obama, and and tried to figure out how I could change my approach. I was swiping from them, if you can. But you're doing something even easier because you can see other people in real time sell stuff. You can see where it's going. So steal their ideas and use them to make them more successful. All right, we got time for 2 or 3 more. Cleo,
Amazing. So
Heather, how was?
a note to you, hold on one second. A note to Forkland to come to our marketing class next week. Barnabas was next, then Heather, and then Aisha.
Barnabas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sean. This is amazing. I'm really grateful. I think my question is about, so I've kind of gone through maybe about steps 1 to 5. And what I'm lacking now, I think that what your students benefit from is they get your feedback and critique. So it's a question about where to go to get some feedback and critique on our lean canvas as it is right now, whether it's yourself or somebody you could, or a group,
So this is
anywhere.
Cleo, this is his nice way of asking me to look at his lean canvas. And I'll say to you what I say to every student. You're all welcome. My email is on the web. I can't do more than 5, 6 a week and it gets backed up, but I'm always happy to. But you have to take it with a grain of salt, Barnabas. How could I know more than your customers know? Just because I'm a good looking professor with 30 years of success and a self-made multimillionaire, it doesn't mean I'm any more right. Okay. I don't know everything. I don't know anything about Beverly's knee issue for running. So I'm happy to sit down. But in the end, you got to be careful taking advice from people who have not done what you want to do. So people come to me, they go, I want to be a music producer. So I'll send you to a music producer. I don't know how to do that. But in the end, you want to look for both mentors and coaches. So a coach is someone who can provide feedback, accountability, discipline, a program, but they don't necessarily have accomplished what you're accomplishing. Not every coach in the Olympics has been an Olympic athlete themselves. Many of them have, but not everyone. You see the fat guys. So you know that people aren't all Olympic athletes who are Olympic coaches. The coach is someone that you see every 2 weeks. It's like a personal trainer. It is a structured format for a 12-month, 24-month period. That will get you some of what you're talking about. One level higher is called a mentor. And the big difference is that you don't mentor someone unless you've done it yourself. All right, I take great offense to people who mentor Olympians who don't have gold around their neck, metaphorically speaking. Okay, I don't like consultants who have never stayed up at 3 in the morning worried they can't pay their employees to give you advice about how to do a startup. I just don't think it's appropriate for lawyers and bankers. But you can find those people. And the third group, so I gave you the coaches, I gave you the mentors. Here's the one that's going to be, you're going to like the most. It costs nothing. Peer groups. Peer, P-E-R. It's hard to hear sometimes. Peer groups. Belonging to startup school. Joining a zone. Hanging out for beers every Monday in the DMZ, just so that you can meet other founders, sharing with Beverly your experience so that she can share with yours, so that you can realize getting the door slammed in your face 20 times isn't the end of the world, because the 21st time Beverly got her deal. I cannot stress strongly enough the importance of startup community, okay? Not the gray-haired old farts like me, but the people who are doing it every day. You have to be there for each other. You have to listen for each other. You have to pick each other up. And so if you can't get a mentor because you don't know people who've done what you've done, or you can't afford to hire a formal coach, go with a peer group. Once a week, you get together with 10 other founders trying to kick butt, and you encourage each other, and you trade stories, and you drink beer or wine or Kool-Aid or whatever makes you guys and gals happy these days. But that costs nothing. And Beverly needs it, and Michelle needs it, and I'll bet you Johnny C needs it, and I'll bet you Heather needs it, because not everyone has a professor like me every week, and not everyone has a student group to belong to, and not everyone has a coach that they can go to. So all of those are available on campus. It just depends on where you are in your journey. I'm gonna have to go and put my kids to bed. Sephora, can we all see your child? This is the Entrepreneur of the Year 2040, right there. The boy, the Sephora, not the child. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Homeschooling has really reminded me of how rare adult conversations can be. I hope this was valuable to each and every one of you in some way. You know, you don't have to believe what I said. It's given with an open heart, and I've experienced much more failure than I have as success, and maybe some of that can help you.
Awesome. Sean, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We always appreciate having you. Everybody loves it. Don't forget to fill out your surveys that I'm about to send you in 1 minute from now, guys, because we want to keep bringing you Startup School. If you want to learn more about Zone Learning, right before we end this, I'll drop the form back in the chat, and Zone Learning is open to everybody. You don't have to be a Ryerson student. So Beverly, Michelle, Farkunda, everybody throw your information in there. I'll bump it right back up in the chat.
Leo, when is the last Startup School?
Ooh, great question. Let me investigate on my phone. We have 3 more sessions, I believe, for the rest of the semester.
Okay.
And
So that's 30 days. So tune in at the last day to see if our friend gets the $100.
that's true. Our last session is on April 1st. Yeah, literally like 27 days from now.
Right? It's all on them. I can't wait to see. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
All right. Good night, everyone. I'll leave the chat open for just another couple minutes while I let you guys put your names on the Zone Learning sign-up sheet. So feel free to do that. I just put it in there, and we'll keep this bad boy open until 7:25, and then we can all wrap it up because it's time for snacks.